Hi, how are my favorite boys and girls today? It's so good to see you, and I hope you're having a really good day. Today, we're going to talk about something that grows outside. I have a couple plants in my backyard. Maybe you have a garden and you've seen some of these growing in your garden. Well, we're going to learn a little bit about them today. We call them vegetables, but actually they're fruit. But we're going to call them vegetables, okay? All right. This is a picture of them. Now, they're not apples because apples grow on a tree. And see, these aren't growing on a tree, they're growing on a little plant. So they can't be apples, even though they look like they could be apples. So let's see how good you are at your letters today. And we'll try to figure out what this fruit vegetable is, okay? All right, let's look at the first letter. Can you see what letter that is? Oh, these are small letters, so they're a little bit harder than doing big letters. So we'll have to see how you're doing in school. Do you know what that first letter is? Let's trace it. Down, curl, and across. What letter did we make? T, right. Let's make the second one. Oh, this is an easy one. T. Oh, good job. Wow, you guys are really learning. Let's do the third letter. Oh, it's got two humps like a camel. Do you know what letter that third letter is? M. T-O-M. Are you knowing? Yeah. Oh, this looks like an O, but it isn't because it's got a straight line and then around. What letter is that? A. I heard you shout it. So let's see what we have. T-O-M-A. Do you know yet? Oh, here's another one of these letters at the beginning. There's another T. T-O-M-A-T. I think we have to finish it. Okay, let's do this letter. Oh, another O. Two more letters. Oh, this is a hard one. Goes around like a C, but it has a little cross in it like that. What is that? Do you know what that letter is? It's a small E. Okay, we're almost done. We only have one more letter, and it's a squiggly one. What letter did Miss Kathy make? S. Good job. What word did I make? Can we read this together? Tomatoes. Tomatoes. Tomatoes! Have you ever seen a tomato grow in your garden? Well, we're going to color, and you're going to tell me what colors to use. Now, I brought a tomato from my garden. Do you see? It's red. There's where it was hooked to the stem. And I'm going to show you a little teeny tiny tomato I have. Look how little that is. That's called a cherry tomato, but it's still a tomato. See, it's got the little place where it was hooked to the stem. Now, when a tomato is ripe, it's red. But when it first starts to grow on the plant, what color is it? Do you know? When it first starts to grow. It's green. It's green like that. And the sun shines on it and shines on it. And then it starts to turn orange. And the sun shines on it and shines on it and shines on it. And then pretty soon, it's red and it's all ready for us to eat. So let's take, what color? I think I'm going to take my green. Let's do one of them on the stem, green, because it needs to sit out in the sunshine a little bit more because it's not ready. And let's do the other one. What color did I say it turns after it's green and the sun shines on it a little bit? Let's do one a little bit more orange because it's getting ripe. So we have two colored. Now, what color should I use on the ones that are all done and ready to eat? Can you sign that color? Red. Let me find my red crayon. Red, red, red. Where are you, red? And we'll make all our other tomatoes red. Tomatoes are very good for you. Now, the reason we think a tomato is like a vegetable, the reason it's actually a fruit is because it has something inside of it. It has little seeds. And usually when a plant has the seed inside of it, and that's the part we eat, that's usually called a fruit. But most of the time when we think of a tomato, we think of a vegetable. Aren't they pretty? Well, I brought my tomato plant today, and we are going to learn a song about tomatoes. It's a silly song. We're going to pretend that we want to be tomatoes. Now, I have to teach you a few signs before we learn the song. I have to teach you the sign for tomato. Tomato. What color is a tomato when we're ready to eat it? Red. So remember the sign for red. We always point to our lips for red. Now, when your mommy takes a tomato in the house, she usually slices it so she can put it in a salad or on a sandwich. So the sign for tomato is red slice, red slice, red slice, like you're cutting your tomato, okay? You can pretend your finger is the tomato and you're slicing it. Red slice, tomato. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. Try it again. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. On a plant out in the sun, I'd grow and grow. Do you remember the sign for grow? We learned it a long time ago when we were doing a Charlie story. Pretend your hand is the ground and this is your plant. And your plant is going to come up through the ground and it's going to grow. Grow. Can you do that? Grow. We're going to learn a lot of signs. We're going to learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signs on this song. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. On a plant out in the sun, I'd grow and grow. I'd be red. You know how to sign red. I'd be red and I'd be sweet. Sweet. Sweet is something that you put in your mouth and oh, it's like sugar or chocolate. It's just so good. And that's the sign for sweet. Just wiggle your fingers and kind of go over your mouth. You don't have to touch your mouth. Just go in front of it. I'd be red and I'd be sweet. Such a yummy, yummy treat. Where's the yummies go? In your tummy. Okay, so rub your tummy. Yummy, yummy treat. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. Okay, I'll do the whole thing for you one time, and then we'll try it together, okay? All right, watch all the signs because you're doing like 5 signs. You're like a professional now. Okay, here we go. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. On a plant out in the sun, I'd grow and grow. I'd be red and I'd be sweet. Such a yummy, yummy treat. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. Okay, so we're going to We're going to wish we were tomatoes, okay? Nice and red and big and full, okay? Here we go. Ready? Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. On a plant out in the sun, I'd grow and grow. I'd be red and I'd be sweet, such a yummy, yummy treat. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. You getting it? You getting all the signs? You want to try tomato again? Red slice, red slice. So you just need both pointies. Red slice, red slice. Grow, like you have a plant growing. You know red. Sweet. Something tastes sweet. Yummy. And tomato again. You can do this. Come on, here we go. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. On a plant out in the sun, I'd grow and grow. I'd be red and I'd be sweet, such a yummy, yummy treat. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. Look how many tomatoes I have on my plant today. Can you count those? There's a bunch of tomatoes. Remember, I told you, tomatoes don't grow on a tree like apples do. They grow on a plant that's close to the ground. They don't grow up in the tree. So let's count. I'm going to get confused. Let's start at the top, and we'll go all the way down around and end up there, okay? Then we can count how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 tasty tomatoes. 10 tomatoes. Now, what if I eat What if I eat 3 tomatoes? 10 tomatoes. Take away 1, 2, 3 tomatoes. How many tomatoes should I have left? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tomatoes. Good job. All right, if I have 7 tomatoes and I eat 1, 2, 3, oh man, I must be hungry. 4 tomatoes. So I had, let's see, I had 7 and I ate 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many should I have left? What's 7 take away 4? 3. Good job. 3 tomatoes. Now, if I ate 2 tomatoes, 3 take away 2, how many do I have left? Just 1 tasty tomato. If I eat that tomato, now how many do I have? 0 tomatoes. Why are we talking so much about tomatoes today, Miss Kathy? Are you on a tomato thing today? I am, because I have a story of this little boy. His name is Jim. And Jim was such a good little boy. He went to church every week and he loved Sunday school. He loved going to Sunday school. He loved his Sunday school teacher and he just loved going. But today, it was a special day because he was going to have a special teacher in his Sunday school class. A special missionary was coming from a country called India. And Jim was so excited because he loves to hear stories about people very, very far away. Well, when the missionary got up, he spoke about the boys and girls who lived in India. And Jim started to feel really sad because he found out that sometimes the boys and girls who live in India, sometimes they don't even have enough food. And they're very, very poor, some of them. And worst of all, some of the children in India don't have a Bible of their own. they don't have God's word like Jim had. Jim had a Bible he could take to church every week. Well, after the missionary was done telling the boys and girls all about the children in India, Jim's Sunday school teacher got up and she had a wonderful idea. She said, boys and girls, why don't we do this? Why don't we save all our money for a whole month and we'll have a big offering, and however much money comes into the offering, we will gather it up and we'll send it to the missionary, and he can use that money to buy Bibles for those children who live in India. Oh, well, Jim was pumped. He thought that was a great idea. And on his way home from church, he was sitting in the back of the car thinking, how can I earn some money in a month? What can I do? And he prayed so hard, God, please show me how I can earn some money so that I can give it to the missionary. Well, he went home that afternoon and he went out to tend his garden. Now, this is the first year that Jim had his own little part of the garden. Usually he helped his daddy take care of the garden, but his daddy gave him his own plot, his own little section of the garden where Jim could grow his own plants. And he had been working so hard. He took such good care of his tomato plants. He took all the weeds out. He made sure they were watered. And he was growing so many tomatoes. Look at all those tomato plants. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He had so many tomato plants. So he was taking care of his tomato plants and praying that God would give him an idea. And then he had it. I've got all these tomatoes. When it's time to pick them, I could sell my tomatoes, and all the money I make from selling my tomatoes, I can give to the missionary. He was so excited. He ran in and he asked his daddy if that would be okay. And his dad and mom thought it was a fantastic idea. Well, now Jim was just beaming. He was so happy, and he took special care of those tomatoes because those tomatoes were going to help buy Bibles for those missionary children. And when it was time to pick his tomatoes, he got his old wagon that he hadn't used for a long time. He got his old wagon out of the garage, and he painted it all up and got it all nice and shiny, and he started to pick those tomatoes. And every tomato he picked with care, and he buffed it and washed it and shined it and made it just so shiny and juicy looking. And he took those tomatoes and he put them in some baskets, and he put the baskets in his shiny red wagon. Now, what do you think he's going to do? What do you think he's going to do with all those tomatoes? He's going to go try selling them so he can get some money to help buy Bibles for the boys and girls in India. And he was excited, and he prayed, God, please let me sell a lot of tomatoes today. Well, he went to the first house, and he knocked on the door, and he said, ma'am, would you like to buy some of my shiny tomatoes today? And she looked at him, and she goes, oh, they're really lovely, but we have our own garden, and we grow our own tomatoes, but thank you anyway. Well, Jim was a little disappointed. He was a little sad, but he thought, I'm going to keep going. He went to the second door, and he knocked on the door. And the woman opened the door, and he said, ma'am, would you like to buy 1 or 2 of my shiny tomatoes just picked, and they're all ready to eat, nice and juicy and tasty? No, thank you. We buy our tomatoes at the farmer's market, so we really don't need any tomatoes today. Well, Jim was feeling a little bit more discouraged. He went to the third house and he knocked, and nobody was home. And he went to the fourth door and he knocked, and nobody was home. And he went to the fifth house, and nobody wanted any tomatoes. Well, it was hot, and he was getting sweaty and tired, and he wasn't selling any tomatoes. And Jim started to feel very, very sad. And by the end of the day, he hadn't sold one tomato. He hadn't made 1 penny for those missionary children in India. And when he got home that night, he was really sad. Well, his daddy took his Bible out because he always read the Bible to his children at night. And he took out his Bible and he noticed that Jim was looking really sad. And he said, Jim, what happened? Didn't you sell any tomatoes today? No, Dad, I didn't sell one, and I just feel like quitting. God didn't help me. I prayed really hard that I would sell some tomatoes so I could give money to the missionaries, and I didn't sell any. And he was almost crying. He was so sad. And Daddy just kind of smiled, and he took his Bible, and he said, you know what, Jim? Tonight, let's do your favorite Bible story. Mine? Yes, your favorite Bible story. Well, Jim's favorite Bible story was about this boy. Do you know who this is? Can you tell by this beautiful coat he has on? Who do you think this is? He has a beautiful coat that his daddy gave him. Joseph. Joseph. Now, Joseph had many brothers. And one day, Joseph's daddy told Joseph, go out and check on your brothers. They're tending to the flocks and to the herds and to the sheep. I want you to go out and check on them, make sure they're okay, and bring them some food. Well, Joseph obeyed his daddy because he always obeyed his daddy, because he loved God very much, and God tells us to obey. And he went out and he checked on his brothers, but his brothers didn't like him because Joseph had that beautiful coat, and they knew how much Daddy loved Joseph, and they were a little bit jealous. Well, they took Joseph. Do you remember what they did to him? They threw him in a big hole, a big old pit, a big hole. They just threw him down in there. How sad would you be if your brothers and sisters did that to you? And Joseph was sold in Egypt. He went far, far away from his home. His brothers sold him to some people going by on some camels. They just sold him. Said, you can have our brother. Could you imagine how sad? And Joseph got to Egypt, but you know what? God was with him. The Bible says God was with him. And Joseph got a very, very important job. And he took care of a very important man's house. But you know what? Someone lied against him. And look where he ended up. Oh, that doesn't look like a happy place, does it? He ended up in prison. He ended up in jail. Now, do you think Joseph was discouraged, Jim? Daddy said, do you think he felt sad, like, where's God, and why isn't God taking care of me? And Jim said, yeah. But Jim, Joseph just kept on trusting God because he knew God was with him. And after many years, God let Joseph get out of that prison, and he stood before the Pharaoh, the king of all of Egypt. And he told the king had had a dream. Do you ever have a dream at night? Well, the king kind of had a bad dream, and he didn't know what the dream meant. And he asked Joseph, and God helped Joseph know what the dream meant. And he said, oh, Pharaoh, you better save some food because there's going to be a time coming where it's going to be so dry and there's not going to be any rain and the tomato plants aren't going to grow and the corn's not going to grow. And Pharaoh could tell that there was something different about Joseph, and he put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. And eventually, Joseph's brothers, as mean brothers, they ran out of food. And guess where they had to come to get food? They had to come see Joseph. And they bowed down to Joseph and begged him for food. And Joseph forgave his brothers. And he welcomed them to come down to Egypt and stay with him. Now, Jim, don't you think that Joseph was a little discouraged when things didn't go right? And Joseph was in Egypt for years and years and years and years. He never got to really go back home again. But he never quit trusting God. He trusted God and he hung on to that rope as hard as he could. And God blessed him. And Jim, you keep trusting. You keep trusting God, and God's going to work it out. Because God promises he'll never leave us, never forsake us. He'll take care of us. Well, the next morning, Jim got up and he thought, okay, here we go again. I'm going to put on my smiley face and I'm going to go sell some tomatoes. And he got his wagon all loaded up, and it wasn't going well at first. And then he stopped at the house of Mr. Brown. Now, Mr. Brown was an older man, and all the kids in the neighborhood loved Mr. Brown. And he saw Jim coming, and Jim kind of had a sad face on, and he said, Jim, what's up? What are you doing with all those tomatoes? And Jim said, I'm trying to sell my tomatoes because I'm trying to make some money so I can give it to the missionary for the children in India to help buy them Bibles. And Mr. Brown said, well, you be patient because that's a good thing to do. And I know God's going to bless you for doing that. And I'll tell you what, I'll take 2 of those shiny tomatoes. Mr. Brown, you're my first customer, really? Sure, I'll take 2 of those tomatoes. And oh, he was so excited. He went over to his wagon and he got 2 shiny tomatoes out and gave them Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown actually gave him more money than he was asking for the tomatoes. And Jim was so encouraged, and he kept walking through the neighborhood. Now, he didn't sell all his tomatoes that day, but by the end of the month, he had sold every one of his tomatoes that grew in that big plot of land he had. He sold them all. He was so excited. He had so much money in a bag to take in and give to his Sunday school teacher so that she could send it to India. And God blessed him because he was faithful and he trusted God. Remember when we were talking about our little, where's my little oyster? I thought I brought him today. Here's my oyster. Remember our oyster from a couple stories ago? And that little pearl? Took a long time for that pearl to grow, a long time. And sometimes it takes a long time for God to answer our prayers the way we want them answered. Sometimes he makes us wait. And when he makes us wait, we just need to trust him. Let's do our trust him song. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord, and he shall direct thy paths. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Show off. You're learning 2 verses, aren't you? Okay, try it with me again. Ready? Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Trust. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord, and he shall direct thy paths. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Let's just do the chorus. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord, and he shall direct thy path. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Jim had to learn to trust God. Joseph had to learn to trust God. And boys and girls, we have to learn to trust God. We have to learn to be patient and wait for him and not be sad if God doesn't answer our prayer right away or if we have a bad week. That doesn't mean God doesn't love us. He's just trying to teach us something. And we just have to trust him. Should we be a tomato one more time? One more time before we go, okay? One more time. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. On a plant out in the sun, I'd grow and grow. I'd be red and I'd be sweet. Such a yummy, yummy treat. Oh, I wish I were a tasty tomato. Tomato. Good job. You know what? You know what we haven't done in a long time? I just was thinking. We haven't done. And Jim really did have a good name because he was working hard to earn some money for the missionaries. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Proverbs 22:1 verse A. You forgot that, didn't you? Did you forget that verse? Good name. Good name. And Joseph certainly had a good name. Good name. Because he showed his trust in God. Let's try it again, okay? Ready? A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Proverbs 22:1 part A. Boys and girls, I hope you have a really good week. And remember, when things don't seem like they're going right, when you're sad and you feel like you're all alone and like God isn't answering your prayer, just sing that little song to yourself. Trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord, and he shall direct thy path. Just sing that to yourself. It'll make you feel tons better. I love you, boys and girls, and we'll see you next week.